Welcome back to part 4 of our 5-part explainer series. We're diving right back into the stark discrepancies in research around AI data center resource consumption. I'm thrilled to have you here. This entire explainer is grounded in Chapter 4 of a really insightful report by Virtualization Options LLC, which is a technology research and advisory group out in Colorado. Today, we're focusing entirely on what we know, what's highly contested, and honestly, how funding sources and political pressures are actively shaping the conclusions we hear from researchers, industry groups, and even government agencies regarding AI's massive footprint in America.
Okay, we've got a packed agenda today. We're going to systematically untangle all of this by looking at 1. The AI research divide, 2. Conflicting power projections, 3. The water usage debate, 4. Funding and research bias, 5. Political pressure on policy, and finally, 6. Evaluating trustworthiness. Let's get into it.
Section 1. The AI research divide, or what the report refers to as the illusion of consensus. We're starting with a fundamental problem here, and it's absolutely critical to understand. The rapid expansion of AI infrastructure is being built on fiercely contested math.
When you read headlines about AI's environmental impact, you might just assume there's this solid scientific consensus backing those numbers up. But as the research shows, that's largely an illusion. So why do AI resource estimates vary so wildly? Well, it turns out the estimates change enormously depending on who is asking the question, who's funding the research, and what underlying assumptions are baked into their models. And the stakes here are massive. Energy planning, grid investment, local utility rate decisions, they all hinge on getting these numbers right. But right now, the margin of error between different models is incredibly wide.
Moving on to Section 2, conflicting power projections. Let's look at the International Energy Agency versus EPRI versus independent models. This is really our first major area of conflict, figuring out exactly how much electricity AI data centers actually consume.
The contrast in these forecasts is just wild. On one hand, the International Energy Agency aggressively revised their global expectations upward, projecting that by 2026, global data center consumption could reach a staggering 1,400 terawatt-hours. Meanwhile, if you look at the Electric Power Research Institute, or EPRI, they are projecting that by 2030, data centers could consume up to 10% of all U.S. electricity. That's a massive chunk of the grid. But are these astronomical numbers actually accurate?
Well, independent researchers are telling us to pump the brakes. Experts like Jesse Jenkins from Princeton University's Zero Lab point out that financial models, like the ones coming from Goldman Sachs, often have structural flaws. He argues they tend to inflate demand by confusing announced data center capacity with actual power draw. And that's a really crucial distinction, right? Because many announced facilities literally never reach their full operational capacity. Plus, these inflated models often completely ignore the ongoing improvements we're seeing in power usage effectiveness.
In building on that, Ariel Bergman over at the Rocky Mountain Institute notes that upcoming hardware efficiencies could completely flip these demand trajectories on their head. For example, advances in chip architecture, like the NVIDIA Blackwell generation, could reduce energy per computation by 70 to 80%. It's a great reminder that treating current technology as static, like it's never going to improve, leads to wildly overestimated future demands.
All right, Section 3, the water usage debate. Academic studies versus corporate deflections, because this research divide isn't just about the power grid, it extends directly into local watersheds.
Listen to this. A peer-reviewed UC Riverside study published in the journal Nature estimated that training a single large language model, comparable to GPT-3, requires a staggering 700,000 liters of water. To put that into perspective for a second, that is enough clean water to completely fill a large suburban community swimming pool, consumed just to train one single model. But actually getting the industry to confirm these historical numbers, it's incredibly difficult. When Microsoft's CFO was directly questioned about this 700,000-liter figure during an earnings call, keep in mind Microsoft hosted the GPT-3 training on their Azure platform, she chose to deflect. She cited improvements in newer data center designs rather than providing any concrete historical data to either confirm or deny the academic finding. It's kind of your classic corporate deflection, and it leaves local municipalities totally guessing about the actual water impact in their backyards. And beyond just the water and power numbers, industry literature frequently minimizes the cascading community-level consequences. We are talking about massive physical land use footprints. We're talking about relentless industrial noise pollution from cooling fans affecting residential neighborhoods, the creation of localized heat islands, severe strain on local utility infrastructure. These aren't just abstract statistics. They are real-world impacts on local communities that often get totally glossed over in industry-funded reports. Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, funding and research bias. How exactly does industry funding shape the narrative? To really understand these discrepancies, we have to look at these structural biases.
The report illustrates this divide brilliantly. Basically, research funded by organizations with vested interests consistently yields more favorable, lower impact metrics than independent academic analysis. It makes sense, right? When an industry group funds a study, the baked-in assumptions tend to align with their business goals. On the flip side, independent, peer-reviewed work frequently challenges those corporate conclusions and exposes those very methodological flaws.
Section 5, Political Pressure on Policy, the rollback of objective assessment. Now we need to examine another layer of complexity here. The Virtualization Options report documents impartially how government agencies are adjusting their scientific postures under political pressure. According to their analysis, we're seeing a rapid succession of regulatory rollbacks that are explicitly tied to shifting administration priorities rather than new objective research. For instance, in early 2024, the Council on Environmental Quality, or CEQ, moved to formally remove key regulations tied to the National Environmental Policy Act. And by July, the EPA updated its own compliance procedures to match, explicitly citing changes in administration priorities as the reason for removing these references. The report notes that what this means in practice is that the traditional, historical regulatory guardrails that once constrained data center infrastructure development are being weakened. The actual procedural requirements for environmental impact assessments are being formally dismantled at the federal level. This obviously paves the way for much faster development, but it comes at the cost of the thorough, objective environmental vetting we've historically relied upon. Section 6, Evaluating Research Trustworthiness. With all this conflicting data, corporate deflection, and political maneuvering, how do we evaluate what is actually true? How do we navigate the misinformation? Well, the report provides a really helpful professional matrix to assess research trustworthiness. The key is to keep an eye on funding independence and methodological transparency. For instance, the Lawrence Berkeley National Lab is considered a gold standard for methodology, but they do carry the risk of being under political pressure. UC Riverside has high credibility, especially on water consumption, with no documented industry funding conflicts. Then you have organizations like EPR. They are technically very sophisticated, but because of their structural alignment with utility interests, their sky-high demand forecasts really should be treated as absolute upper bounds rather than baseline truths. Look, as we move forward to maintain intellectual honesty in this whole AI debate, it's vital to acknowledge that there are areas of genuine scientific uncertainty. We simply don't know the exact long-run trajectory of hardware efficiency. We don't know exactly how electricity costs and water limits are going to force data centers to geographically relocate. And we don't yet know how much AI processing will eventually move to edge devices like your smartphone versus staying in these massive centralized facilities. So as we wrap up part 4 of this explainer, I want to leave you with a critical framework for your own analysis. The next time you see a staggering statistic about AI's power or water usage, whether it's a catastrophic warning or a super reassuring corporate press release, stop and ask yourself, who funded the research and what assumptions did they hide in the math? Understanding the bias is really the first step to seeing the real picture. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in part 5.